Did you know that there is a direct correlation between your frequency, your level of vibration, and the volume of your ego in your mind? I know, may seem a little obvious, but maybe you've never thought of it. Have you? Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Fernando and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna show you the direct correlation your level of vibration has to the size and presence of your ego in your experience. Now, when we come to Earth, the ego is here for a reason and it has its place. So it's not about killing it off, all right? Ego death, that's not what we're doing, because it's part of the third dimensional experience. But when it's running the show, when it's taking over, when it's throwing parties at our expense, then we're just not having fun. We are creating hell on earth and we're not manifesting our desires. So after watching this video, this correlation will be very clear and you will be able to gauge what's going on in your life and you will be able to course correct more effectively. At the end, we're also talking how to raise your vibration so that you can quiet the ego down a little bit and manifest your desires, all right? Do you feel me? Are you ready for this? So to begin, we're gonna talk about the scale of consciousness provided to us by David R. Hawkins. Now, David R. Hawkins was a pioneering researcher in the field of consciousness. And he provided us with this beautiful thing over here, which provides us with the levels of vibration there are. So let's go over them briefly so we understand the vibrations first, all right? Enlightenment is like the super high vibe frequency, ultimate consciousness. Then we have peace, love, joy, pure Tao, flow, joy, acceptance, willingness, neutrality. We're going down, right? The scale. Here at the middle, we have a state of getting by. You're neither here nor there. And then we have pride, anger, fear, grief, guilt, shame. This is the suffering state of being. Not fun, not helping us. We're creating hell on earth. We're not having a ball, right? So these are very dense frequencies. What you really are is this. All of this, okay? You are peace, you are love, you are joy, you are light, you are pure consciousness. That's what we are and that's what we have in the spirit world. All of this. It's delicious. It's awesome. It's divine. But we decide to come to Earth because when you're this and all you have and see is this all the time, maybe we welcome a challenge. And it's like, I need a little contrast just so that I can appreciate and remember how divine this is, because maybe I've forgotten, okay? And so when we come to Earth, it's like, boom, you have this like the other side of things, duality, contrast. So it's kind of like this. This is, the spirit world and joy, peace, and all the goodness, right? And then it's like, boom, you have the opposite, the contrast. And so the lower part is, the opposite. So when you're thinking shame, guilt, grief, fear, they oppose all of the goodness up here, right? So like the fifth dimensional consciousness, right? Even higher than the fifth, but anyway, let's just talk about the fifth here to contrast with the third dimensional state of consciousness. Literally the state of consciousness of Earth. It's very dense. It's very heavy. It's very strong emotions, right? And that's why we come here. So these things also have their role in our experience, because when we feel this, when we experience those, that's when we have the chance to transmute darkness back to light. And this is what we're doing here. When we transmute these back to light, we are expanding. So these are tools, okay? But do we want to live here like all the time and like just have a horrible time and like go back to the spirit world and not have learned anything? No. So Learning how to use those is key. Transmuting things back to light. Then we're expanding and we're fulfilling our purpose here. Okay, with all that said, this is the third dimensional state of being, state of consciousness. Now, the ego. Where does the ego live? Here? Here? Everywhere? The ego is a byproduct of the density, basically. So the ego thrives down here. You throw fear in the game, the ego is like clapping its hands, okay? Fear is ego's food. Anger is the same. Grief, guilt, shame, all of those dense vibrations. Because the ego can only survive here. And this is the earth state of consciousness, right? The third dimensional state of consciousness. The human ego is literally here. When we transcend, when we go back to the spirit world, the human ego is non-existent. So it thrives here. So when you're vibrating down low, the ego inflates. It gets huge. So let's take a look at the seesaws we have over here. They represent this idea very clearly. Here, you're vibrating down low. Low vibe. What happens to your ego? Huge. And so it begins to run the show. And it begins to tell you things that are not true, because this is truth, okay? This is truth. This is a tool for expansion, but it's not ultimate truth. It's not. Fear, not even true. Okay, so, but it's a tool and it's part of the experience. The experience is real, but it's not true. It's an illusion, right? This experience is an illusion, although it's a real experience, right? And so when we're dwelling in these, the ego gets big and it starts to tell us things that are not true. So this is the ego, right? This is you vibrating down low. And this is the ego in your mind, okay? Look how big it gets in your mind. It's totally taking over. And look at what it's cooking up for you. Blame, defensiveness, overthinking, lashing out. So when you're having a horrible time and you're vibrating down below, you're going to begin to blame. You're going to argue with people, even if they're trying to help you. Even if they're trying to guide you back to light, if you're totally down here, you're just going to be angry at them. That's the ego running the show. And you're identifying with the ego. You think you are literally the ego because you forgot you are literally love. So you totally buy into the illusion. So that's what it's doing. And do you see the sorry you look like a fish, okay? And also subscribe to the channel. Do you see the glasses here? When we're down here, we begin, it's like we're wearing these glasses that totally taint the experience. So we see reality for what it's really not fundamentally. And so what's happening here is we're seeing the world through the lens of a lack of love, a lack of safety, a lack of worthiness. Oh, I'm so not enough, right? I'm the victim. Scarcity, I'm not enough. There's not enough to go around. Everything is limited. Separation, total separation, victimhood. So that's how we see the world, literally, because we're down here. And we're believing we are that. We are thinking we're the body, we're the mind, meaning the ego with all its shenanigans, right? This, literally what's going on. You are vibrating down low. So whenever this is going on in your experience, please know and remember that this means your vibe is low. What if we just started to go up? If you're here, down here, it's not very easy or maybe impossible, I don't know, to like go to like peace in one leap. What Abraham Hicks tells us, she has a similar scale. She's like, go up one by one, okay? So if you're in fear, maybe go to anger, because even though anger is still negative, it's a start, right? And then maybe you go to pride, neutrality, that's great. And then willingness, acceptance, joy. So it's about going up the scale. And then when you're vibrating high, look what happens to your ego. So tiny, so small, right? It's still there, it's still present, it's still part of the experience. But who's running the show? You. You are running the show. You are love, you are light, you are so powerful. You're manifesting your desires. You are manifesting miracles in your day-to-day life. Even if the miracles are small, okay? Miracles don't have to be like winning the lottery only or manifesting this huge thing, you know, like the small miracles. Literally, life is so magical. So it's literally about doing this because the ego quiets down. Why? Because where does ego live? Down here. So guess what? If you're in peace, the ego is... the voice of the ego dissolves, right? It's still there, but it's not running the show. And it's beautiful. And so when that's happening, this is you. High vibe. Right? Love. So the way you see the world, look, you see love, you emanate love, your experiences are loving, you are in gratitude, you are in forgiveness, you are in compassion. And the world reflects all of that back to you. When you're dwelling here, the world reflects all of the gunk back to you, and you're stuck in this loop. And it snowballs into like horrible things, and you're like, what is going on here, God, right? The snowballing effect is the same here. It's beautiful. The third dimensional state of being is survival driven and egocentric, okay? And the high vibe frequencies are expansive and heart-centered. So heart-centered versus egocentric. Heart-centered, egocentric. Very big difference. When someone is here, maybe you're vibrating up here, which is great, but then there are people around us that are not in the same place as we are. When I began my journey, my spiritual journey, the first materials I read were Rhonda Byrne's books. And one of the things I remember reading is that when you're dealing with people that are vibrating down below, you have two options. You can talk to them and try to guide the conversation back to a loving place. And if that's not possible, if the person is way down here and, you know, they just want to keep vibrating here, then what you should do is just excuse yourself and go somewhere else, right? My sister was living here for a long time. A long time. Litigious divorce, yada, yada, yada. I have shared her story in many videos actually. And now she's way up here. She's living in gratitude. She's been practicing, you know, these spiritual concepts, and she's loving it. She was telling me the other day that she was talking to a friend of hers that's mostly here, you know, very chaotic situation. She went on a cruise. She's looking for love. She was telling her that she did things that she shouldn't have done, and she got back from this trip feeling horrible, and she was like venting to my sister. And my sister was like here, like, oh my gosh, how do I handle this? And so I shared this story that I just shared with you about like trying to guide the situation to a better place or just leaving, right? Because ultimately, if the person wants to keep here, then you don't want to be there because negativity can be contagious, right? And so that's what she tried to do. She was like telling her how, you know, everything would be okay and how her life is filled with blessings. Oh boy, oh boy. Her friend began to lash out. She was very pissed, my sister was telling me. Lashing out, blaming, defensiveness. She was like, you are not being the friend that I need you to be right now. And so she lashed out. My sister couldn't even reply, and I don't know what happened afterwards, but she stepped back. What is happening here? My sister's friend is literally being driven by the ego. This is literally what's happening. It's like the person is taken over by the ego. And when you're talking to that person, you're not really talking to who they are. You're talking to the ego, who thrives in third-dimensional feelings and emotions and frequencies. And so if the person doesn't commit to or realize what's going on, and unfortunately a lot of times we just don't see things clearly, right? God bless everyone, by the way. It's hard for there to be a connection, and so a lot of times we want to help people, but they don't really want to be helped because they're somewhere else, if that makes sense. Ho'oponopono comes in very handy in situations like this because ultimately it's your mind projection. So you get to clean on whatever's going on in your video game, right? On the other hand, my sister was talking the other day to my father's mother. It's my grandmother. I haven't spoken to her in many, many, many years. We didn't get along when I was growing up. I have forgiven her. It's been a blessing, but we don't talk. But my sister was talking to her last week, and they don't really talk much these days. My grandma was about to begin to complain, and my sister just shifted directions, and she was like, "Grandma, you're amazing," And she was like, "Oh my gosh!" And they had an awesome talk, and she was very pleased at where the situation led by just doing that. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the benefits of the ego, the ego's role in our experience. The ego is a guide in disguise. So for example, when you feel triggered, that is the ego showing us what is up for healing and transmutation. The ego begins to manifest, and then we have two options. We can either identify with the ego and then end up here and begin to blame and point a finger, or we can notice it, acknowledge it, thank it, and go the other direction. And it's like, this is triggering me, it's inside of myself, it needs healing. It wants transmutation. What can I learn from this? I'm going to welcome this feeling and allow it to be transmuted with love as you remain as the light. Do you see the difference? Identifying with the trigger, the ego, or allowing that emotion to be present and transmute that back to light by not associating with it, by looking at it objectively. I shared a very clear example of this in my last video. I'm going to link it here if you want to watch it. I had a triggering experience recently, a minor one, but it was a triggering one, and that's what I did. I allowed it to be, and I transmuted it. It's very powerful, and you can totally do it. The ego is a tool for navigation. It's showing you the contrast. It's showing you what needs to be healed. But when you allow the ego to be the ruling boss, then you end up here. So instead of seeing it and allowing it to be the ruling boss, see it as the helpful assistant, because that's what it really is. Also, the ego protects you, right? Imagine like a potentially dangerous situation. The ego is going to kick in and it's going to save you. It's going to keep you from getting to that dangerous situation. We're not trying to smoke the ego or anything. And so to raise your vibration, 3 tips I'm going to give you. The first one is gratitude. I have also made a video on it. I share a lot of tips that I use in my daily practices. Gratitude can change your life. Second tip is forgiveness, practicing forgiveness. I have also made a video on that. And forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you, your aura, your field of energy. You clean your field and you begin to ascend. Holding grudges can keep you here, okay? on a moment-to-moment basis, on a daily basis. Very powerful. And the third one is a personal practice that I do that I love and that keeps raising my vibration. I like to bless strangers in my mind when I'm walking, my dogs, when I'm at the gym, when I'm out and about. I'm like always sending love to people and going like in my mind, God bless your soul, God bless your soul, more for you, I love you, I love you. This alone raises your vibration and detaches you from the egocentric, craziness. It's very powerful. You can do that anytime. These practices are portable. That's the brilliance of it. You can do it at any time. And so when you're doing those things, your vibration is getting raised automatically. And the ego is getting quieter and quieter. So hopefully this is very clear to you. It's very interesting to see this from this perspective, isn't it? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. And don't stop here. I'm going to link the video that I share my triggering experience so that you can check it out right now.